want to thank everybody who's been with me, my Xbox clan.
When Kobe going back to play Madison Square Garden, and he's like, hey, hook me up with dinner with Heath Ledger.
Like Russell Westbrook, that was a great feat the other day. I couldn't even tweet it out.
It's Coach Frank Vogel here, full of enthusiasm and positive energy.
Well, first of all, you don't smoke peyote.
And there was a couple games where I was at a hookah lounge. That's the truth. I wasn't smoking hookah, but I was there.
There was a time when the Israelites were wandering in the desert and all of a sudden bread came down from heaven. That's kind of what today feels like to have KCP join.
Welcome back to Bulls vs. Blazers. You can find us, as always, on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, anywhere else that you can find podcasts. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, all of that. Subscribe to the Patreon. Also, shout out to the family. You can join the family for $3 a month. You can get an NFT of any episode you want for $150,000 a month. Spencer Dinwiddie just signed a $20 million a year contract. I think he could afford that. I know he's into Bitcoin, so Spencer Dinwiddie, sign up for the certified baller level Patreon challenge is in effect, I think.
Definitely. Now that he's handsomely paid, Spencer Dinwiddie, he's been itching for a new deal and to have it in Bitcoin for a while. This one is not in Bitcoin to my knowledge.
Do we think that Ted Leonsis is going to actually let him do that like digital investment token thing or whatever that he was trying to do with his contract that he like got in trouble for?
Absolutely not. Like Ted Leonsis is an old man who's very rich, but is still, he's like an old Clinton like donor type guy.
Right.
Like he's not going to be into the crypto. I don't think. I like, if you had to ask me truthfully, I don't think that he's into the crypto.
Did you see his quote yesterday about Russell Westbrook and Alex Ovechkin?
Yeah, I did see that. That not so like definitely dog whistly vibe.
It's the
that
difference
he had
between
going.
the NBA and the NHL is that players in the NHL are loyal and don't ask for trades. Even though they didn't, it's not like they traded for Russ because they were trying to trade for Russ to keep him long term. They traded for him because that was the only way they were ever going to get off of the John Wall contract.
It wasn't like we traded for Russell Westbrook and this is the future of the franchise.
No,
we're building around
one
Russell.
Bad contract for another. And then today, Bradley Beal tweeted out the thinking face emoji, and then Bradley Beal's wife tweeted out, "Oh, wow." And of course, that led to people kind of freaking out because if there's one thing we know about Bradley Beal, who's like been one of the most solid and just, he's kind of, similar to Dame in a lot of ways. If he were going to ask for a trade, he definitely would do it in a cryptic emoji tweet.
For sure. He would definitely, yeah, exactly. Which I think now we can all, reverse engineering that series of events. It's clearly he heard about the Dinwiddie thing and that it was going to happen. And he just wanted to get people riled up, which is, everyone does that. Nurkic has been, tweeting Adele lyrics, maybe to be
I think he's just being a company man.
Yeah. Oh, that. And he's like, hey, Rich, can you get me a new deal that's not partially guaranteed? I think is definitely what he's also saying when he raises his hand is like, hey, I have a partially guaranteed year this year. Can we get that option picked up or what? Like, because I have heard, I had heard you don't have to hear anything. Nurkic, after the Blazers were eliminated, like the first thing that was on his mind was his contract.
Yeah.
And it was pretty clear that he's been unhappy with his deal for a while. And then he sees all these other guys getting paid what they get paid in free agency. And he wants a piece of the pie. There's been a lot of money thrown around, as there always is, for basically mid-level type guys. You saw what Alex Caruso got paid, which I have to say, the Lakers, tough scene. Tough scene for the Lakers, not being able to pay the luxury tax to bring back Caruso. Tough scene.
And also, I was listening to the Hoop Collective yesterday, and Ramona Shelburne said that Caruso went to the Lakers and offered to take less than what the Bulls were offering because he wanted to stay, and they said no.
Ooh.
Which, I don't know. I mean, there's this phrase that I don't necessarily love because it has some kind of class connotations that are problematic in today's day and age. But the phrase "poverty franchise" is one that kind of gets thrown around a lot, and I don't know. I think between this and like taking out a PPP loan at the beginning of the pandemic, I just wonder if that dialogue has to be started about the Lakers.
Well, let's not forget. Now, this is not necessarily isn't always our beat, but when we were following the Blazers coaching search / would they fire Neil Olshey and hire somebody else situation, the Lakers did sell a significant chunk of their franchise to a holding company.
I forgot about that.
And so they have already sold off part of their business. So it's not just the buses. It's the buses plus, I forget which holding company bought into the Lakers, but I believe they bought 27% of the franchise. So that is a new wrinkle here. So it might not just be that the Lakers are being cheap here and not wanting to bring back Caruso. Maybe they don't believe that they need Caruso, but if that's what they believe, it's a bad calculation because they need him. I mean, he paired so well with LeBron, and I know that it's also probably political because you can't finish game. You're not going to be able to finish games on a team with Russell Westbrook on the bench. Like, that just isn't going to fly. So that might also be part of it. It's just like a protection against the temptation of like Frank Vogel being like, well, let's do it, won us championships, stick Caruso back out there with LeBron.
We should transition into the real Lakers. And speaking of cryptic tweets, and are not necessarily cryptic tweets, but news-making tweets, we got a tweet, an official statement on the Lakers' first 3 days of free agency from LeBron James. And this is a tweet that he posted and then deleted a couple of different times. It's currently deleted, but our man, honorary Bulls vs. Blazers family member Scoop B, has documented this tweet.
Get your pins out.
Get your pins out.
Drop that red pin. It's Scoop B time.
By the way, Scoop B got an actual scoop yesterday. The Mike D'Antoni being hired as a coaching consultant for the Pelicans, which is just we'll get to the Pelicans. We'll get to
David Griffin.
Yes, but here's what LeBron says about the Lakers. He says, "Keep talking about my squad, our personnel ages, the way he plays, he stays injured. We're past our time in this league, etc., etc., etc. Do me one favor. Please," all caps, 1, 2, 3, 4 exclamation points. And I mean, please, all caps, 3 exclamation points. Prayer hands emoji. Keep that same narrative energy, all caps, when it begins, exclamation point. That's all I ask. Hashtag thank you, and then crown emoji.
Another masterclass from the King on Twitter. This is up there. Again, Bulls vs. Blazers listeners will know that I am, as the former editor of a site about him, I've had to think about it. I involuntarily thought a lot about his tweets, and this is up there with "I will die for sports in general. Listen here, baseball commissioner," the open letter to Rob Manfred about the Houston Astros. Like this is up there with that. I mean,
I also think the other one is just my thoughts from a sports junkie, regardless of my sport that I play.
That's another banger. And obviously everyone talks about "you bum," the tweet at Trump, which is
or the
good.
The fit in or fit out, the Kevin Love stuff.
Fit in or fit out, but these
I actually am pretty partial to this one that he had during. It's early in his first season back in Cleveland the second time, where like they were on a losing streak. This was like before the JR Mozgov trade when like the team wasn't doing very well. And he had this mirror selfie and he was just saying like, I am just thinking about, reflecting and thinking, why is this going on in my life? I forget the exact caption, but he had like an emo tweet that has stuck with me for all these years too.
I know that photo because everyone uses it, because everything LeBron does turns into a meme or some form of content, which is, I mean, look, We're doing it right now. But that tweet was hilarious. Like it actually like made me laugh really hard today. And like, I felt like I needed it. So thank you, LeBron, for doing that. And just, that was so funny. And I cannot wait to watch this fucking team. Like truth. Like,
is this
really
Vibes Council West?
I think so. I think it's definitely Vibes Council West. I mean, Jared Dudley is like the ultimate vibes concierge.
Is he back? Is he under contract?
I think he is. I mean, he's just hanging out. Like I think he's on the team just to hang out. Like, he's the new Kendrick Perkins. Like, he's like, he's either going to get signed by the team, or he's just going to hang out with the team the whole season and then get signed to the team like right before the playoffs. You know, like there's always that guy on a LeBron team. I could totally see it. I mean, he was like going to Puerto Rico with LeBron and hanging out with Bad Bunny. It was like LeBron, his crew, and Jared Dudley with Bad Bunny. Like, yeah. Like it just seems he's a whole character now. In the Vibes Council West.
But I mean, just all these people that they brought. You bring in Melo, so you finally get we'll talk about the Melo era in Portland maybe a little bit later, because that's going to be a whole thing. But you brought in Melo, so we finally have the Banana Boat reunion that both LeBron and Melo have wanted their entire careers. That's on the table now. Dwight Howard is back for a third time. He's officially the Lakers' Steve Blake, 3 different stints with the team,
which is honestly perfect for the Lakers franchise. Like, Dwight Howard being their Steve Blake is like honestly pretty fitting. Yeah.
I think that's there. That's an upgrade. Obviously they missed Dwight last year with, they tried to bring in Andre Drummond. That didn't really work out. So Dwight's back in the mix now. Kent Bazemore is in the mix again, which, I mean, bring in Dwight and you bring in Bazemore. That's a lot of people who have seen Eric Clapton in concert, and I don't know if that's how many people I'd be comfortable with having that view. It seems like Dennis Schroeder is going to be out though, so that's, you're balancing it out there a little bit, but you have to keep the quota up.
Yes, the Claptonites are out. With they've doubled at least in size to our knowledge.
There's going to be that famous graffiti that said Clapton is God that was scribbled in the 60s when there was like the rivalry between Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix for who was the better guitarist. Somebody did graffiti that said Clapton is God. You're going to see a recreation of that on the wall up next to the retired jerseys at the Lakers practice facility in El Segundo. I feel like that's going to be something that comes into play before the end of the season. And if this goes the way it goes.
And we're going to have to create a counter sign that says Guetta is God.
Or it just says shout out to the family with a picture of Guetta.
Yeah, that could be our response, our counter. As the children say on Twitter when they're trying to counter a ratio.
I still don't know what any of that means. I mean,
you don't understand the counter to the ratio? I feel like it's pretty simple.
Back in my day, as an old person on Twitter, ratio just meant that there was a tweet where there was such a bad take or whatever that the replies would way outnumber the number of likes and retweets. And then I think it evolved once they started separating out quote tweets. It separated out, but now it's just people will just reply ratio to just any tweet, and then I understand that part. I don't understand the counter part. So explain that to me.
So counter means when someone's getting ratioed, someone will try and start a counter ratio to the ratio.
Okay.
To ratio the person who's trying to start a ratio. If that makes sense.
The thing I've seen a lot lately.
I just want to say shout out to Joel Embiid, who was tweeting who just tweeted a ratio just out of nowhere.
Didn't he tweet it at Woj when he announced that Andre Drummond was?
No, did he?
He might have, but there were some old Andre Drummond tweets that were or some old Joel Embiid tweets about Andre Drummond that have resurfaced. I asked our resident Andre Drummond truther Sopan Deb, the no hat boy, what he thought about whether, Drummond going to the Sixers, what's that going to mean for his Hall of Fame case. And he said it shouldn't move the needle because he should already be in the Hall of Fame. So that's where that agenda stands right now.
Hey, I mean, at least he's standing by his take.
I respect the take, man. But anyway, so back to Dwight, like back to the Lakers. Oh, by the way, you want to talk about tough scenes as far as people who are, followers of the Van Morrison, Eric Clapton lifestyle. Dennis Schroeder thought he was going to get paid, and it seems like I don't know what's going to even happen for him. There's no market really for him right now. I think he thought he was going to be part of like some sign and trade for the Lakers to get a guy, but the Russ trade was their big move, and he wasn't really in the mix on that. He didn't get in the mix on like the Brooklyn part of that sign and trade with Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, he might have to take like a minimum or a mid-level deal for next year, which is kind of rough for him because he just turned down $84 million and then threw LeBron under the bus for not going to the David Guetta concert, even though LeBron actually went to an early screening of the David Guetta concert.
Yeah, it's as far as we know, and
a warm-up date.
Yeah, the soft opening of the Guetta concert. But yeah, no, brutal. No one has had a worse free agency period than Dennis Schroeder. I think it could. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody. Like, I know I made the joke about Blazer fans having a rough time because everyone wants the trade to happen. Everyone wants to trade CJ for Ben Simmons or some kind of thing.
Pascal Siakam. Whoever.
Pascal Siakam is another one that Blazer fans really want. Brian Windhorst was alluding today on the jump that Dame may be trying to recruit Draymond Green.
Well, we've known that. I mean, that's not a scoop by Windy. I mean, we love Windy. That's not a scoop. All you have to do is look at Dame's social media over the last 2 years and put together that he's been trying to recruit Draymond.
Exactly. No, he would love to play with Draymond Green, and he wants it to happen. And, CJ McCollum is a contract that would work. I think Portland could also cobble together a couple other ones, like they could send Nurkic.
Nurkic to like Derek Jones in Covington or something.
Yeah, like they could also do that.
I don't think Golden State is really trying to do that though. They just signed Steph to this big extension. I don't think they're real. Like, they already just like drafted a couple of young guys who are going to be like projects that aren't going to be like ready to contribute right away, and they salary dumped Eric Paschall probably to like. I think they're probably going to try to sign like Paul Millsap or something for the taxpayer mid-level. So I don't know if they're really in a position right now where they're trying to trade Draymond, but that's something that it would certainly qualify as a needle moving thing for Neil. You want to just talk about what the Blazers have done or not done? You want to just go into that?
Yeah. I mean, their signings have been fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cody Zeller probably an upgrade over Enes Kanter.
Yeah, the Hornets were a better team defensively and rebounding the ball when Zeller was on the floor, according to NBA, the on-off stats, and he boxes out. His individual numbers are not as good. He has developed a little bit of a jumper. I mean, he doesn't take very many, but he can space it out a little bit.
Ben McLemore, fine. He keeps the clutch Northwest pipeline going, keeping your third eye open about LeBron and Maverick buying the team when LeBron retires. That's fine. Tony Snell, fine in his role. Like,
McLemore and Snell are both like, Snell better defender than McLemore, and McLemore probably the better shooter, but that can go either way any night. They're just going to be shooting threes most of the night, and I think they're solid role players, and they're paying them nothing. I mean, they're paying them the minimum, so it does seem like all these guys are signing for 1 year. So maybe through I think it just kind of confirms what you and I have said and reported and written, that it feels like the Blazers have 1 year on Dame's timeline to get this shit together. So we're getting a lot of guys that are trying to sign up, that are down to ride with this team for 1 year. I mean, that's what the signings all seem like to me. Like, we're not seeing a lot of multi-year signings with these, minimum free agents, which to me just seems like they know the deal. Like, this is going to be a one-time thing unless, they really, surprise everybody.
So I want to, as we're going to talk about, kind of what the Blazers have done. I want to make a point that I've been thinking about over the last couple of, days since everything has sort of unfolded. It's a new agenda. I'm going to debut a new agenda. And that agenda is that cap space is fake.
100%.
Because, I mean, what is the team that I think everybody is looking at, generally speaking, as like the clear winner of free agency in terms of they made the biggest splash. They really just overhauled their entire roster. They brought in big names. They brought in, I think that is the Bulls. And they gave Lonzo Ball a big deal. They brought in DeMar DeRozan with a sign and trade. They signed Alex Caruso. Like, they've made legit upgrades. And the Bulls were not one of these, like, because there were a few teams like the Knicks, the Spurs. There were a few teams that were going to go into this summer with, a ton of cap space to do stuff with. And the Bulls were not one of them. Everybody kind of knew that they were going to go after Lonzo, but there was always going to involve a sign and trade. They figured out how to do that sign and trade. It seems like they're going to do a sign and trade with Daniel Tice and Caruso and, a three-way thing so that they can keep their mid-level. They did a sign and trade for DeRozan. Like, they didn't have cap space, but they were still able to bring in big names. And I feel like whenever Neil talks in 6 months or whatever, when he thinks the heat is off of him from the investigation and he decides to talk again, like, he's going to talk about how it's really hard to do stuff when you're capped out. And I'm just sitting there thinking, you know what? They could have, found a way for Zach Collins going to the Spurs to be part of a sign and trade. They could have found a way to, bring guys in if they had a little bit more ambition and a little bit more creativity. You're seeing other GMs who maybe don't have cap space be able to find a way to bring guys in. And, like, Washington didn't have the space to pay Spencer Dinwiddie $22 million a year or whatever he's making on his new deal, but they found a way to do it with us. Like, you can find ways to bring guys in if you have the ambition to do it. And I feel like the Blazers have just been like, yeah, we'll upgrade the Enes Kanter spot to Cody Zeller. We'll bring in Tony Snell. And I mean, we'll see what they do with like the taxpayer mid-level, but that just kind of feels like it. I understand there's, people, I've seen some people on Twitter being like, hey, just wait. Like, what if Neil Olshey has the big splash coming? Like, what if he's like working on a CJ trade? I'm pretty confident in saying that he's not working on a CJ trade.
Yeah. I mean,
that's been pretty telegraphed for like several weeks that they're just going to run it back. And I feel like a little bit more creativity would have them in a better spot, even if they don't on paper have the cap space right now, because cap space is fake.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No, I think, yeah, Olshey talks about how they have to be creative in moves and stuff like that. And all this.
Deal flow was a big thing of his early on.
Deal flow is a classic Neil-ism. And
bifurcating.
Yes, bifurcating as well. They're all these classic isms where he uses this jargon to bifurcate the actual to try and separate us who know what the team is and what it looks like and what they are, to try and create a sense of doubt in the minds of fans and people that know this team should be better, but he likes to use this jargon as a way to create distance between himself and anyone else who talks about the team. And he does all this while just only doing this thrift shopping bullshit. And he came to the Blazers being a guy who was lauded as a big deals guy. He knows agents, he knows players, blah, 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 blah. He's
the guy that traded for Chris Paul with the Clippers.
Yes, I remember very vividly. I was working for the Blazers as an intern his first season, and very high up in his media guide description was he acquired Chris Paul for the Los Angeles Clippers. And one of his whole things is aggregating assets and keeping assets together and putting them all together in a trade so you can make a big trade happen, while never doing any of those things, only doing future draft picks that are late in the lottery or in the 20s and players that nobody really wants, like Mo Harkless in, say, a deal for Paul George, and not doing what you would have needed to do for Chris Paul, which was include Eric Gordon, which in this case for the Blazers is CJ McCollum. Like it's that kind of deal that he did in LA with the Clippers to get Chris Paul that he says he's capable of doing, but has never shown the capability of doing that. And it's like putting together CJ and picks and all that stuff could get you a really good player. Like not a lot of these ones that have been like, you know, where I thought that there have been a lot of times where people have been like CJ for Oladipo. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. But like that.
By the way, Oladipo, you want to talk about tough scenes also. The Clout Chase Championship has been put off for another year. I'm pretty sure he signed a minimum deal to go back to Miami and, you know, hope he can stay healthy for a year and test the market again next offseason.
Yeah, no, the Clout Chase Championship is for real again. But yeah, but like I this right now, like the Ben Simmons thing for me is just like I know that they want 4 first-round picks or whatever, but like give them fucking pick swaps. I don't give a shit, man. Like do it.
I don't think Dame is really worried about first round, like future pick swaps.
Yeah, and also it's like, and I know that Dame is not like stoked on the idea of Ben Simmons, but I'm just gonna say this, like that is the best move for the Blazers today because Ben Simmons is better than Draymond Green, and it's also their better move for the future if it fucking fails and Dame does want to leave. Like, that's the best move, period. Like, who cares if you don't have draft picks? If you lose Damian Lillard, at least you have Ben Simmons. Like, Ben Simmons.
And you'll probably get picks back if you trade Dame.
Yeah, and it's like to me, it's like, and I think if Dame gave Ben Simmons a chance, it would work really well. I think they would work really well together. I think it would be a really great fit because Lillard's, you know, best years post Aldridge have been with forwards that help make his life easier on the defensive end, like Al-Farouq Aminu, and Simmons does that at a higher level than Aminu did. And he's also an amazing offensive player and gives them a dimension in transition that is very rare. That a lot of teams would kill to have the force that Ben Simmons is in transition. And the Blazers have been a fucking terrible transition team throughout Lillard's entire career. Like, and I honestly can't remember. And even before that with Brandon Roy, and the last time the Blazers were good at transition basketball was the 90s when they had Terry Porter and Clyde Drexler. I would like for them to be good at fast breaking again. It's past time for them to be good at that again. And it's like that type of style gets people fucking excited. And it's like, it would be fun to do that again.
I agree.
Yeah, but of course it's not going to happen.
It's not going to. I mean, I still think it's not going to happen. Not just because Neil will never trade CJ, but also because Daryl's holding out for Dame, and he's not going to trade Ben Simmons to Portland for CJ.
No, I there's nothing that I have seen that indicates that for me.
So I'm not gonna kill Neil for not doing the specific Ben Simmons for CJ trade because I don't think that one's on the table. But like, I don't know, there's something you can do. There's something you can do to shake it up. Your plan can't be, we got a new coach. We're gonna bring in Cody Zeller and Ben McLemore and Tony Snell, and that's our offseason. When Dame went on the record and said he wants to see urgency, and he says that I don't see how you can just run this team back and think it's a title contender with a new coach. So I don't know. I mean, my belief is still that Neil is kind of daring Dame to ask for a trade so that he can be painted as the bad guy, and then Neil can rebuild around CJ. I still believe that's the most likely way that this all plays out. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. And I definitely feel like that. I mean, it's definitely I said this the other day. It's like I was talking about this to someone. It's like Harry Potter and Voldemort. Like no one can live while the other survives. You know what I mean? Like yes. Neither one of them is going to be really that stoked to continue being here. It's going to be so it's kind of a like. What do you mean neither can live where the other survives? One of these guys is going to leave, Dame or who?
Or O'Shea.
O'Shea's not going anywhere, so...
Right, but I'm just saying...
Until the team gets sold, that's the only way that's going to happen at this point. If it didn't happen after the Chauncey stuff and the investigation, he's bulletproof.
Yeah, that does seem like the case, but, I mean... I don't know, man. Like, Lillard leaving, I feel like, is... I don't think that they understand what that would do to this team. Or maybe they don't care.
Well, look, Erik. When you're in a small market like Portland, you always have stars wanting to go to other markets. You see guys wanting to go to New York and LA and Miami. It's a small market. Like I just don't know what you can expect anyone to do.
Exactly. I mean, you only want to go to where there's places with good weather, as evidenced by the Bulls getting everybody that they wanted.
Giannis re-signing his supermax in Milwaukee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Milwaukee, as you know, glam market, especially compared to Portland. Where there's good places to eat.
I will say, as a longtime former Chicago resident, I'm pretty stoked that like the Bulls are actually acting like a big market franchise again and throwing money around and getting big name guys. And I would love it if Chicago was like relevant as an NBA city again, because before COVID,
I love Chicago. I've not lived there, but I would also like to say I'm very stoked on the Bulls being relevant too. I would just like to say that because Chicago rules.
Yeah. Well, so right back, like the last thing I did before the pandemic was I went to the All-Star game in Chicago. And it was an awesome event. It was an awesome weekend. The city did a great job as far as putting together the event and all of the ancillary stuff. And, it was a great representation of the city, blah, blah, blah. Like it was a great event. There was zero buzz at all locally about the Bulls in any way. Nobody was talking about, we're excited about Zach LaVine and Lowry Mark. Like there was just like the fact that there is an NBA team. It might as well have been like the All-Star game in, Vegas or some city that doesn't have an NBA team for how little of a presence the actual local team had there. There was zero buzz at all. Nobody was talking about the Bulls at all. Like Zach LaVine was in the 3-point contest. That was the only, he even like refused to do the dunk contest because he didn't get named to the All-Star team because the team was terrible. And like, this was like when Jim Boylan was still there, like Garpacks were still there. I think that was really what led ownership and the Reinsdorfs to decide they needed to make a change as far as the front office, because they saw that they hosted the All-Star game and nobody was talking about their own team or taking them seriously. They were hoping that by then, the Bulls would be headed in the right direction. There would be a little bit of buzz about the team and, they're up and coming. And it was just no. The only time the Bulls like got national attention during that weekend was when Zach LaVine was on First Take and there were fans in the background chanting "Fire Garpax," and it was like an awkward thing. So the Bulls being not that anymore, like they have a real coach, they have a real front office, they have actual good players now. Like I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, it's good for the league. I think it's good for the league to just like we were saying, and I was saying when the Knicks were good, that I'm one of those people who actually believes the NBA is better when the Knicks are good. I also believe that the league is going to be better when the Bulls are good. It's just like, it's good to have the Bulls alive again, to have that market alive again. And it is nostalgia as well. Like it's cool to have games mattering in Chicago at the United Center with, the Jordan statue outside. And I think it's really cool to have DeMar and Lonzo and Caruso and with Zach LaVine, and Vucevic. I mean, they have a squad on the Bulls. Like they have like a really good team. I think they could be top 6 for sure. I mean, I think that's very much in the cards for them, if not better. I mean, they could be a, maybe even, I mean, they're not going to knock the Bucks out for home court, but they could be 5th too. I mean, like
they could be the Knicks.
Yeah, they could be next year's Knicks. I mean, I think,
whereas I think the Knicks are probably going to take a little bit of a step back. I feel like they just sort of are, they're running back what they have, and then they added Evan Fournier on a huge contract.
Yeah, I've always been an RJ defender, though, to Draft Twitter's dismay that I loved RJ Barrett, but I still believe in RJ. Like, I mean, he's still he's 21.
Yeah.
Like he's still a kid, I think he learned. I thought he did a good job of taking advantage of mismatches at times. Like he would hit some big shots from time to time from 3. Like he is still growing into his game, and like I don't know if we can expect Randall to have the same kind of season that he had with like the way he was hitting those pull up jumpers, but he's he's still, I mean, he's not the oldest guy. Like, guys get better into their like early 30s and, all the time now. So it's not that crazy that the Knicks could bank on Randall and Barrett getting better. And I mean, Fournier, that was a loss for the Celtics, I thought.
I mean, I think, I don't know, was that just like they didn't want to pay his price, and then they could get Josh Richardson for less, and then they brought back Enes Kanter, which
and I think they're worried about paying Robert Williams next summer. So that is something that they're gonna have to do too. And they got Al Horford. So I mean, their team is gonna be it. And also, what this probably also just means is just like, I mean, Tatum has already kind of taken the leap, but I think we're just going to see Jalen also using even more possessions. Like, we're going to see them like give those guys the ball like even more. Like, it's going to be more heliocentric, I believe is the term that people are using these days to describe. There's going to be two sons in the Celtics offense, and it's going to be Jason and Jalen, and the rest of the guys are going to be, filling in around that.
Heliocentric is the new word that people use when they want to sound like they're really smart about basketball. It's the new spacing. It's the new 3-and-D.
Gravity,
verticality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It just means the guy who has the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
For those of you who speak English, it just means the guy who has the ball in his hands. And that's basically it. But I think the Bulls are going to be super tight. I mean, I'm a big Lonzo dude. Lonzo was a dude I would have taken on the Blazers. And DeMar has also become a really good playmaker with the Spurs, and he still doesn't shoot threes, but I don't care. He's a really good player.
He's going to be playing the 4 a lot in their on this team, like he's been playing with San Antonio.
Yeah, and I mean, him as your 4, I mean, that's awesome to be a playmaker, and he can still score. That's the thing that people sometimes, I think, misunderstand at times about the importance of spacing, is that it is important, but what's really important is just being able to score, period. And DeMar DeRozan does that. And I think in the Warriors, like, blinded people to people who don't play like Steph and Clay.
Somebody made the point that the Bulls are having an all-LA offseason where they signed Lonzo, who's an LA guy, played at UCLA, DeMar, who's an LA guy, played at USC, to go along with Zach LaVine, who played at UCLA, and they signed Alex Caruso, who played for the Lakers. And now the Lakers are having basically an all-Chicago offseason where they signed Kendrick Nunn, they re-signed Talen Horton-Tucker, which, by the way, shout out to the idea that has been put out there by some people that a max contract for Talen Horton-Tucker was going to be part of a sign and trade for Dame. I just want to shout out to the family of that rumor.
Yes, shout out to the THT. Also, just shout out to the THT Kuzma package that was going to get Dame as well, because that is dead now because Kuzma and Co are in Washington now.
How is Kuzma's brand going to do in DC, do you think? Like, is he going to still get his many social media followers now that he's not on the Lakers? Is his brand going to take a little bit of a hit? Or
I mean, I'm already starting the Kuz. I mean, since when we're talking about realistic moves that the Blazers could make, I'm a huge fan of Derek Jones in a protected first for Kyle Kuzma.
That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I'm a huge fan of that deal. As far as deals that Neil O'Shea would actually do, because he won't trade for Ben Simmons. But if they kept CJ and all things being equal, like, I would so sign up like to have Kyle Kuzma on the Blazers. He'd be perfect.
He would fill a lot of needs, I think.
He's good at defense. He can create his own shot. He's not afraid of the moment. He rebounds, which, a lot of times in big Blazer games and big losses, they would give up these big offensive rebounds. And it's just like, Kuz is a dude with a nose for the ball. And he got championship training as a complimentary player. He knows how to help a team win in the postseason. And it's just like, the resistance to him is just Lakers trauma to me from Blazers fans. and just the general rejection of anybody who wears a Lakers uniform being good because of everyone's general hatred for the Lakers.
I don't know if it's hatred for the Lakers as much as it's just kind of rolling your eyes at any time a role player, especially like a young guy who wasn't a lottery pick and I made this point earlier when the Warriors salary dumped Eric Paschall to the Jazz earlier today. I was just thinking back to that 1 week in Eric Paschall's rookie year where he torched the Blazers and he had a couple of other good games. And there was all this talk about, did the Warriors hit another home run? Is this the next generation of their star dynasty? And it's like every time the Lakers or the Warriors get a young player that's like halfway, we're kind of seeing the same thing happen with Taylor Horton-Tucker right now, where like anytime one of those two teams gets a player that's like decent, it gets blown up as this is like a future all-star. This is a superstar. And I think people are kind of rolling their eyes at that with Kuzma, and he is a pretty good player. By the way,
Kuzma's actually a player. Like Taylor Horton-Tucker is still like a theoretical guy.
Right. In a similar vein, I've been enjoying the tradition of the Warriors signing guys for like the minimum, and that being like, I can't believe the rest of the league let the Warriors just get Otto Porter at the minimum. That's so unfair. Nemanja Bjelica, that's an incredible get and it's like, Nemanja Bjelica like didn't play for Miami in the playoffs last year. It's always so funny. Like, I'm old enough to remember one of the first two Durant off seasons, where either the off season where he signed or the 2017 off season. One of those two off seasons, they signed Jonas Jerebko for like either the minimum or the taxpayer mid-level or something. And there was so much, I think like Bill Simmons was like talking about this. There was all this hand-wringing about it's so unfair that the Warriors were able to get Jonas Jerebko. Like just anytime the Lakers or the
dude
Warriors,
who was like the eighth man on the Celtics the year before.
Right. But like anytime the Lakers or the Warriors get anybody that's halfway decent, they immediately, I talked about this the last time, that 24 hours where it looked like the Lakers were going to trade for Buddy Hield, suddenly the discourse around Buddy Hield went from, he's a good shooter, but he's also like, he's kind of overpaid and he's inconsistent and he has had like issues with, being happy with his role, to suddenly, wow, this is just an incredible value signing or an incredible pickup for the Lakers. And actually his contract is really good value because it declines. Like,
yeah, Buddy with Braun, it's going to hit different. Like
anytime one of those two, like the Spurs used, like whenever the Spurs draft, it used to be like during the whole Spurs run, like the Spurs have been relevant for a couple of years, but during like the Duncan, Kawhi, Manu, Tim Dunk, or the Tony Parker era, whenever they drafted some guy in the second round who was like even a rotation player, it's just the Spurs did it again. I can't believe they were able to get DeJuan Blair in the second round. Like that's just unfair for like, I don't know how the rest of the league let that happen. Like the Spurs used to be in that category. I think the Knicks are in that category with draft picks. Like whenever, like I remember like Iman Shumpert was untouchable in trades for like the longest time. And I think Emmanuel Quickley is sort of occupying that space right now where like they're talking about, do they want to include Emmanuel Quickley and have Damian Lillard trade back? Like
that was the height to me of the Lillard trade nonsense. was various outlets reporting hey, look, the Knicks can get Damian Lillard without giving up Emmanuel Quickley. It's like, guys, what in the world is happening?
And I think the Bulls saw this and they just kind of want that for themselves. They want to be seen as like a big market power player. They want Patrick Williams to be untouchable in a Damian Lillard trade.
Yes, and it's about time, and it's the new front office is bringing a new day for the Bulls franchise, and it's taken a while, but. I mean, shout out to the Bulls. Shout out to Bulls fans that have been waiting. Obviously the D Rose years were the peak D Rose years were really good, but I mean they have just like they have both a very talented team and also a very cool team on top of that. So I'm excited for the Bulls. I mean, Bulls versus Blazers this year is a fucking event, bro.
Two teams that are actually. They have roughly. I think
they're basically the same in relevance. I would say. Like,
I would say so. I think there's a little bit more buzz around the Bulls, and
because there's a newness around the Bulls that they're like that we haven't seen before. But in terms of like how competitive they are, they're basically the same.
Yeah, they're both going to be probably like a 6 seed and lose in the first round.
It really does seem that way right now. I mean, it's like a injury, and the thing about, back to the Blazers for a second, the thing about Cody Zeller is that like he is in a vacuum a better player than Enes Kanter, but the problem is the NBA doesn't happen in a vacuum, and Cody Zeller gets hurt a lot. And getting basically the thing that you're doing with a Cody Zeller is it's like, I would liken it to it's a high upside bet. Like your upside is going to be higher if the bet pays off, where Cody Zeller is able to suit up for the majority of games this season. But I would say the odds of that hitting are lower than the odds of Kanter staying healthy and him just at least showing up, even though, he has his deficiencies as a defender and in the playoffs is basically unplayable. I don't think Zeller would be as unplayable in the postseason.
The Blazers now are one of 6 teams that has had both a Plumlee and a Zeller at some point. Can you name the other 5?
Let's try. Okay, Indiana.
No.
Cleveland.
No.
The Knicks.
No.
Well, I'm Detroit.
I don't think any of the Plumlees or Zellers have played for Indy, which is weird.
They are from they're because aren't they? They're both from Indiana, right?
Yeah, none of them have ever played for the Pacers. I don't believe.
The Hawks.
The Hawks are one because
Miles Plumlee played there. Right?
Miles briefly played for by the way, one of them you should know because during the time
Phoenix. Oh my God, Phoenix.
Phoenix is one, and I know this because I vividly remember you G-chatting me. I'm about that Miles Plumlee life.
I was about that life. It's not that interesting. He's just like a rich white dude who has a lot of money and time on his hands, so he goes to Burning Man. It's like his thing now.
I actually remember back to that season, the season where you said you were about the Miles Plumlee life. That was the season where the Suns won 48 games and barely missed the playoffs unexpectedly. That was like the Dragic-Bledsoe year before they brought in Isaiah and ruined all, like the height of the Ryan McDonough era.
That's right. Before he started talking about betting lines like us.
The first week of the regular season, they beat a bunch. I forget who they beat in that first week. They might have beat Miami. They beat a bunch of good teams. And this was when I was at USA Today, and we were supposed to do our MVP ballot rankings every week, like our MVP power rankings as like a staff, where it was like me, Adi, Sam, Jeff, all of the people, and then all the beat writers for like all the different Gannett papers would all collectively like submit our MVP power rankings. And I remember that first week, just because I put Miles Plumlee at number 1 on my MVP ballot.
That's fine.
For that first week of the season.
That's iconic.
So Phoenix is 1. The Hawks are 1.
Phoenix and Atlanta and the Blazers, right? So
that's 3.
So that's 3. And there's 3 other ones or 4 other ones?
3 others.
Shit. Orlando?
No.
The Nets.
Yes. Because one of the Zellers was there briefly, and then Mason obviously was there before he got to Portland.
Okay. Celtics?
No Zeller or no Plumlee has ever been on the Celtics.
Yeah, because I remember Tyler Zeller.
Tyler Zeller was on the Celtics. No Plumlee has ever been on the.
The one thing, the Zellers run the floor really well. That's just, I don't know why I'm just say that, but that's one thing that is good about him. But I'm trying to think here.
The Bucks were 1.
The Bucks, fuck,
because they had Miles and they had Tyler.
Oh yeah,
at different points, and then the Hornets are the other one because Miles was briefly on Charlotte. So, and then if you want to count Denver, Tyler Zeller briefly played he didn't actually play in a regular season game, but he went to training camp and was played in a preseason game for them. And obviously Mason Plumlee has been there. So if you want to count them, there could be 7.
Well, and they had Thomas Welsh, who, is basically a fucking Plumlee,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Summer League legend Thomas Welsh.
Yeah. Well, dude, do you remember that story? There was that whole story in the Denver media that the true unsung hero of Denver's growth on the defensive end was Tom Welsh.
I do remember this.
That was a big storyline. It's actually funny because one of my friends' agencies represented Tom Welsh, and it was funny.
It's just like how remember during the Roy Aldridge era, their big defensive linchpin was going to be Torian Green.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's just the classic. That's just a classic beat writer ass story.
Beat writers need something to talk about during training camp, and this one young player, like the coach said that he's done a good job on defense during practice, and so they blow that up into like a thing.
Dude, I mean, I respect the game.
Yeah, the content machine has to be fed, but I do remember. I do remember the Torian Green era, and I guess the Thomas Welsh era is similar. So I got my credential approval yesterday for Summer League, and on the page there was a link to a website that was like a secure database thing where you go and you upload your ticket stub to prove to the NBA that you have been to the David Guetta concert.
Hell yeah.
And that's how they're going to let you get in-person access. I got to say, I still am feeling a little bit uneasy about going to Summer League because the Delta variant stuff is out there, and like Vegas is not doing well in terms of like the number of COVID cases. And like, I've had a couple of people that I know that are going there that have like texted me like, hey, we should get dinner. And I'm just like, only if we could go somewhere outdoors, because I'm still not trying to like go to a casino or eat indoors or do any of that.
Yeah. That's I agree. And I guess the one thing is like, dude, to be able to do in-person access, that'll be cool again.
Well, we'll see how in person it is. Like, we'll see if it evolves, because there's still a few days before the thing starts for the league to decide, hey, actually cases are going up. We're going to just make it all Zoom again. And then we will have paid whatever we paid to send me to Vegas to be on Zoom and be sitting in my hotel room.
I mean, we were making jokes about the Denver Summer League team with Tom Welsh, but no joke, they have had to postpone all of their practices basically for health and safety protocols. So that's another, variable in the.
Is Michael Porter Jr. on the Summer League team?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think I saw something about him getting an extension this summer.
I mean, I would imagine he probably will get one.
Yeah, I mean, he balled out in the playoffs for them, and he doesn't miss jumpers ever.
You know where I was going with asking if he's on the Summer League team when they're having all these.
Oh, of course. I'm saying that Michael Porter might not be the only one who listens to Eric Clapton on the on the Nuggets Summer League team. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, the Blazers Summer League team is like the most interesting. First of all, at Eric's Gambling Corner segue, I'm going to need an official pick from you. The Blazers, I believe, are they put out the official odds for who's going to win the Summer League championship. The Blazers are favored, and that's because they have three guys who are actually like NBA veterans: Emmanuel Mudiay, Kenneth Faried, 10 years after the Blazers should have drafted him instead of Nolan Smith, and obviously the legend Michael Beasley.
Yeah, in this case, I guess it's Kevin Pritchard getting his guy.
Kevin Pritchard getting his guy, and also, I mean that's no, because Kevin Pritchard was already fired by then.
Right.
Well, no, because Kevin Pritchard was fired the day of the 2010 draft, and then still had to do the draft, and that was like the Luke Babbitt. Armand Johnson, was that the other pick that they had?
Yeah, something like that. I feel like 2011 draft was the 2011 draft.
2011 was the Nolan Smith, Kenneth Faried draft, and that was like, I'm not a draft guy. Like, I don't watch college basketball. I don't often have like opinions about guys in the draft, especially after you get outside of the top 5. But that day, like, because it was clear after that season, their biggest need was a backup 4 who could rebound. And Kenneth Faried,
he was the all-time fucking rebounder in NCAA history. It was the easiest no-brainer of all fucking time.
I didn't think that like he was even going to still be there at 21 or whatever they had, but they then, and I was actually because we were still in college at the time. I was on a family vacation in the summer with my family. We were in England, and so I wasn't awake during the draft because it was like 8 hours ahead or whatever. And so I wake up the next morning and check my phone, and they drafted Nolan Smith with Kenneth Faried on the board. And like, that was, in my Blazer fan days before I became like a, hardened media professional who wasn't actually a fan of the team anymore, that hurt me more than Odin Durant or like any of the other ones that are like more famous, because that one was just such a, like, it was at that point, it was like, okay, they have Roy and Aldridge already in place. this is the most obvious like role player, like guy that they could draft for need based on that position. And then the guy they drafted was out of the league in 2 years.
Yeah, we're a big Nate McMillan respecters podcast. I'm just going to say that Nate McMillan was an assistant coach on Team USA at that time, who was coached by Mike Krzyzewski, who is Dolan Smith's college coach. So just going to throw that one out there. You can keep your third eye open about that one.
Keep your third eye open about draft day decisions 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. That are looking backwards.
I'm pretty excited for Michael Beasley at Summer League, man. Like that's gonna. I wonder if he's actually gonna play. I remember like 2 or 3 years ago, he was on the Rockets Summer League team for some reason. So he's a Summer League lifer. He might be like the all-time Summer League leading scorer. I might have to. That's an interesting thing that I'm going to be paying attention to, because otherwise it's just like CJ Ellaby is going to be on the Summer League team, and the kid that they just drafted, Greg Brown, who by the way did a Zoom yesterday, and he was asked by I forget who asked him. It was one of the TV guys here. It was like Krupke or something, or maybe AJ, but I forget who asked. But it was like he was asked, "What are your strengths and weaknesses as a player?" And he said his strength is his athleticism, and his weakness is his skill set, his dribbling, passing, and shooting.
Hey,
I respect the self-awareness.
Yeah, maybe he can help on defense. I don't fucking know. He's
not going to play.
He's not going to play. He's not ever going to play. I mean, Nasir Little has been on the bench for 2 years, and he was a first-round pick. So,
well, Nasir Little also got his season messed up by COVID last
year. That's true.
So.
He's had some bad luck. I'm sorry to Nasir, but I think Nasir's going to play this season. I mean, he's going to have to. And yeah, I mean, shout out to Melo. I think before we sign off,
yeah,
I think we got to cherish the Melo era in Portland.
There were so many memories of the Melo era.
I mean,
I think the big one was the LaMelo jersey swap, and Melo saying that he supports LaMelo Ball, A, doing the 3 to the dome celebration, and B, being called Melo.
Right.
There was a pretty good clutch points graphic that I got the hat tip on off of that.
That was, I think, that was one of the biggest moments. I mean, there was his threes his shots in the bubble, he just made so many damn important shots in the bubble against Memphis, in the game against the Lakers that they won, in pretty much all the games where they advanced or where they had to win. Melo hit some kind of big shot, his game winner against the Raptors. I thought being at his first game with the Blazers was pretty dope, and how
I went up to the concourse before that game. They were playing Oklahoma City. I went up to the concourse to look at the team store, and already Melo jerseys were totally sold out.
Yeah, and I remember him talking after the game, and he's like, "This is real love that we're dealing with right here." And it was just like, and every time Melo held the court, man, it was just super tight, man. Like there's that.
He always was playing Marvin Gaye on his Beats pill.
That was incredible. He'd be like, and he'd always do this thing. He's like, "Y'all waiting for me?" It's like, "Yes, Melo, we're waiting for you." Like we've all been, and it was you could tell that he felt so happy to have to be in the spotlight, to play minutes, to play his game. Stotts let him play his way, and he's gonna join the Lakers, and it's I think they're gonna let him do his thing. They're gonna let him be himself.
He's probably not going to play much in the playoffs.
No, and I think, I mean, that was the kind of role that he was going to have, I think, anywhere at this point in his career.
But I had heard that he was either going to go to the Lakers or go back to New York.
Yes, the Knicks were all. I mean, his former agent is there, and the Knicks, they had interest reportedly, and you had heard that as well. So those are all things. But I'm going to miss Carmelo, man. It was super tight, and I'm so glad that we got it. I wish we had gotten it earlier in his career, and he admitted that too. But it was so much fun, and I'm glad that it was as good of an idea as Corbin and I thought it would be.
The two of you spoke it in. The two of you had been trying to speak it into existence for 2 years before it actually happened.
I'm pretty sure ever since LaMarcus left, I was a proponent.
You guys were on it when he was getting traded from New York to Oklahoma City, and then again when he was getting traded from Oklahoma City to wherever, and then he got bought out and went to Houston, I vividly remember the three of us, me, you, Big Corbs, we were at Zappa Pizza, which sadly has gone under, not even due to COVID. It went under before that, downtown on November, whatever, 2019. And we were just talking about how, and this was like right when the Blazers were just like totally down bad. They just lost Zach Collins for the season. Like Nasir Little was clearly not ready. They were starting Anthony Tolliver at power forward. It was pretty rough. And we were sitting there at Zappa Pizza. Somebody on a jukebox put on the entire 20-minute cut of Rush's 21-12. It was not me. Amazingly, it was not me, but somebody did it. I remember that. And we were talking about that Melo, it needs to happen. Melo at that point, had been basically out of the league for a year. He was technically on the Bulls roster, but never played. And then he got waived and he was like sitting courtside at MSG. And we were just saying, you know what, screw it, sign Melo. And then 6 hours later, the Woj tweet comes out that they were signing Melo. So we speak it into existence at Zappa Pizza? Who can say?
Yeah, we did. And you joined us for sure on the team. You were definitely on the team before it happened.
You guys, I got to give you guys credit. You guys were the visionaries, but I was there the day that it happened.
You were. I mean, Corbin and I, we were going to Tusk, like I think the summer before that, and being like, Melo, come and eat at Tusk. And all this stuff, like all this stupid shit. It was so much fun. It was just like, and we would like every time I had Corbin on the podcast, we would just like, if we'd end up having to decide about, well, it would be fun if they signed Carmelo Anthony or traded for Melo or something. Like we said that so many damn times. And I just like, I can't believe that it happened. It's the only cool thing Neil has ever done. And it was fun. I have to say it was super fun, and I try to be a professional. I don't buy Blazers jerseys, but now that he's off the Blazers,
you're getting the throwback.
I went and bought one.
Which one did you get?
I got the Rip City cream jersey. The one
that's the one to get.
That was the one. I was just like, because that's the one that he has like the people like where he has that photo with Dame. And where he puts his arm around Dame. And that was also like a Fire City edition. There haven't been a ton. Like, I mean, I came to really like the Oregon ones eventually. I grew to like those. But the Rip City cream ones were the one that I got. So I copped that. So I'm waiting for that to come in the mail. So because I had to get something to commemorate Melo, just because it was a moment in time, and I was happy to be here and in Portland for it all.
The only thing I wish is that it hadn't happened during a COVID season, so we would have actually gotten more time to talk to him in person and actually get to know him a little bit. Because I mean, as soon as they signed him, I got texts from like my buddy Fred Katz, who covered him in Oklahoma City, and then like Vork and a couple of the Knicks guys that I know would, immediately texted me and were just like, Melo's great, you're going to love covering him. And that was my experience. I have nothing but positive things to say about the Melo era in Portland. And, I'm happy for him going, getting to play with LeBron finally. And, the Banana Boat reunion actually coming to pass. So, I'm good for him.
I'm going to miss it as someone who moonlights for the Associated Press because, gotta say,
he fills the notebook.
It was always a hitter with the New York desk if you put Melo in the
tip-ins. Oh, I had one of my best.
That easy story. Not gonna lie.
One of my best reporting grifts, I guess. I don't even want to call it a grift because it was actually like a good story idea.
Yeah.
But it was the grift. It's spiritually part of the grift.
Right.
But like a couple weeks before COVID, when we were still like allowed into locker rooms and could actually talk to guys, was when the Knicks hired Leon Rose as team president.
I was there with you. I remember you going to me and being like, I'm going to do this. And then
I got Melo.
Yeah,
that was actually kind of a stressful post-game thing because on that Team USA story that I was working on for the 2010 team, that they were playing Miami in that game. And that was like when Iguodala had just gotten traded to the Heat, and I needed him for that story. And he like said he would talk to me post game, and then he like took a while to come out of the shower, and so I had to like wait around there. And so I was able to get Andre, and I was like in the back, and that was obviously my priority because that was like a much bigger, like long-term feature that I was working on. And I got Andre, and he was great. And then I run over to the Blazers locker room, and like Dame had talked, CJ had talked, but I get there, and Melo hadn't talked yet. And so I waited until after, he did the group, and then I grabbed him afterwards and asked him about Leon Rose. And then I wrote that up, and I was the, part of, being in Portland, I was the only like NBA writer who's like has any kind of a national focus who would have even cared about that angle. And so I was the only one that had Carmelo Anthony talks about the Knicks hiring his former agent as team president, and like all the New York blogs and talk shows like picked it up and aggregated it and stuff. So my editors were very happy about that.
God, fucking great, dude. Fucking love Carmelo Anthony here in Portland. It was so much fun. And I am really happy that although it was in COVID and it was a smaller gathering, that he got to have the birthday moment. That was super cool. It felt like goodbye also at the same time, like it kind of did feel that way, especially when they lost. And so like that was cool. And one last thing I wanted to touch on that we didn't talk about, but for the vibes, I think is good. We talked about the Knicks. We totally forgot Kemba going back to New York. Yeah,
I mean, I hope his knee is okay.
It's just cool. Like even if he's coming off the bench,
If no, it's for the vibes, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not gonna, he's still not the same Kemba, but like, man, it was. I think that's cool. It's as good of a story as you're gonna get for Kemba too. Like he got traded from Boston to Oklahoma City. Like
I'm stunned that Oklahoma City bought him out, as opposed to just holding him hostage and like trading him for another future first round pick to add to the collection. This
is where Oklahoma City is learning from the Hinkie era, in that they want to be known as a place that players are treated well and players get outcomes that they like. Like, you didn't hear anything from Al Horford, but I love Oklahoma City. They're a first-class organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, after getting traded. And doing this for a guy as well-beloved in the league as Kemba Walker is way more valuable than a fucking first-round pick. And this is where, like, the understanding of dealing with of players being people and the fact that they all talk to each other and the social aspect of the league, I think Sam Presti is doing a better job improving upon the process, quote unquote, by just being a better hang, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, he's got great music taste also.
That's true. That's true. I've heard.
Many are saying this.
So
mainly just me.
I think the Wiz Kid is learning a little. He has learned from his predecessors in doing things like this, just aggregating all these picks. But I think we saw that there's a point of diminishing returns when that's all you give a shit about. And so people that come to me and say, I want Portland to do the process, not even Oklahoma City is really doing the process.
They just gave Shea all that money.
Yeah, they're being smart and they're thinking about their long-term future, but they are not just playing with, just trying to aggregate as many assets together and future picks and just having all of that just to have it. Because at a certain point, that ends up costing you if you constantly show that you value those things over people that actually work for you. And that, I think, is where Hinkie failed and where Presti is, doing a better job. Because, Kemba Walker, he could do exactly what you're saying and just say, like, we're going to hold you out and we're going to wait till someone trades for you. But this, it's running a team, like, you got to, it's vibes. Presti is managing the vibes very well, and that's
analytics and vibes is a balance.
Yes, analytics. The three factors go into team building: analytics, buckets, and vibes.
And on that note, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We are going to. This is going to probably be the last episode we do for a week or so because I am going to Vegas on Sunday. I'm probably not going to be trying to record while I'm in Vegas. So next weekend, probably we will do something for the family. Shout out to the family.
How about this? If something happens, what if I find a guest co-host? Like if something big happens.
Well, let's define big.
Like let's say the unthinkable happens and CJ gets traded for Ben Simmons or something.
If CJ gets traded, we'll
do a podcast. Okay,
we'll figure something.
That's like the threshold because like there's really nothing else that's going to happen at this point.
I don't think we're going to do a Paul Millsap emergency podcast if that's who Neil signs with a mid-level.
No, we're not going to do that. So yeah, plan accordingly, listeners and family, because this is a free
shout out to the family.
This is a free one, right? Yeah. Okay.
This is a free pod. Spencer Dinwiddie, sign up for the NFT tier of the Patreon challenge. We'll be back next weekend. Shout out to the family. Thanks for listening.